Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. La 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 la. La 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 la. Nobody's here with me. I'm so lonely. Nobody's watching either. That's so lonely. Sandman. Bum 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 bum. La, la, la. It has buzz. Buzz. La 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 ba la ba la la ba la la ba la la ba la 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 Figaro, 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 Figaro. So what? Yeah, Figaro. So what? Figaro love, Figaro do, Figaro you, Figaro me, Figaro me, Figaro you. Okay, boys, where are ya? I sent you another invitation. Motherfucker, I'm la da 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 dee doo. Ba ba da ba da ba ba da ba da ba da boom boom. Beepity beepity beepity. Well, we have no viewers, so I guess it doesn't matter. Uh, do 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 wah 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 wah. Okay. Hello. Let's not delete that track. There we go. Much better. Do do da da ba 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 da do. Oh oh overmodulated. 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 All right. Sounds pretty good. Feels pretty excellent. Nothing seems to want to work. Motherfucker, 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 motherfucker. You, ooh, 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 ooh. Automatic level control. Automatic level control. No, 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 no. Turn you off. Do 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 do. Da 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 da. How does that? How does that? Ooh, that sounds muddy. We want a little more trouble than that. We want a little more trouble than that. We want a little more trouble and a little more trouble and a little more trouble than that. How about some bass? We got some bass. How about some trouble? We got some of that too. Hey da 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 do 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 do. We turn the volume up. We turn the volume up, up, up. We turn it up, 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 up. Are you there, Robinson? I see you, but I don't hear you. Perhaps you're muted. I'd say that's very possible. All things considered. Da 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 da. I can see you. You look like a candy cane. That's adorable.
I can't hear anything.
Super cute. Oh. I still don't know
Can you hear me?
how the fuck.
Okay.
Hello?
Hang on a second. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okie dokie.
Do 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 do. Oh, I see Chaz now. Why don't I
Yes.
hear anything?
You don't hear me?
I can hear Chaz.
You can hear me?
Mike, can you hear me?
I don't
I
hear
can hear you,
anything,
Robinson.
but do you hear each other?
You can hear each
Yes.
What? This doesn't make any sense. So
Robinson sounds a little
weird.
quiet.
How about now? There we go. Now I hear you. Say
Good,
something,
good.
motherfuckers.
I'm saying something, motherfucker.
Jesus. Now you, Robinson.
Okay.
You're very quiet.
I am trying to make some adjustments here.
Yeah, you're very quiet.
I'm very quiet.
Yes.
Extremely quiet.
Okay.
Painfully quiet.
Is that any better?
It is much better.
Okay. Is it too good? I mean, is it too loud?
It's never too good, Robinson.
Okay. I don't want to pick up a bunch of weird outside noise by turning my volume up too high, so just let me know if that works.
It is. I definitely probably hear Chaz's air conditioning.
I always forget that. Be right back.
That's all right. And I'm going to try to make it so that you guys can hear the fucking bumper music. Can you believe that shit?
No way.
That's why I wanted to get going a little bit early, because let's see. Now I'm afraid this is going to be really fucking loud, so bear with me if it is.
Wow, I can hear it.
Wow. So we're pretending that this is the sober happy hour stuff. And now
Cool.
it's playing and you can hear it. How cool is that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All
right. I'm playing it. So then all I gotta do is like fade it out. And I need to, okay. So to figure out which break song we want to play, I guess all we'll do then is we'll put the break song in the Dropbox the night of the show, and that should be cool. Shouldn't be a problem at all. What should we play?
Dunno.
Yeah, me neither.
Just put on random, see what comes up. Put on shuffle.
Yeah, well, I gotta pick a song so that I can put it so that you guys can hear it too, because we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it this way. It's gonna be great. I say we do. All right, we'll do this one. Somebody's going whoop whoop whoop.
That's
whoop,
me.
whoop.
I'm going through the process of inviting people in Vietnam to my show.
So you got the public link then.
Yeah, I'm cut and pasting.
Perfect. Excellent. All right, so just keep in mind. Wow. That was really loud. For those that are watching us live on YouTube, that is what Chaz's house sounds like.
Yes, it does. Now this is what Chaz's head sounds like.
Chaz's head sounds like. I don't want to.
Whatever's around here.
I don't want to know what it's like to give Chaz head. It's not my thing. Sorry. I mean, you pissed off if you want to.
I'm hurt.
It's just not my thing. All right. So everything seems good. Do I sound over-modulated to you guys?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
Okay, yeah, now you do.
Because you know what I think I need to do? I think I need to invest in a much more sensitive microphone to use for these for this shit. Oh, crap. Are you there?
We're here.
Because I'm thinking.
Oh my god, what happened to your hair?
I got in a fight with a weed whacker. Weed whacker.
You should see the weed whacker.
It's time for a change.
Nice.
Micrófono nuevo. Because Robinson's always complaining that you can't see my face. I saw a movie the other night, and in the middle of the movie theater, during the movie, I heard Robinson's ringtone, his text tone, the boop 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 boop.
From the audience?
in the audience. I heard it like 5 times, and I was like, wow, it must just be like when you have that ringtone, you're an asshole and you don't know how to turn your sound off. That must be a thing. Yeah. All right, let's quit some programs, make the computer feel a little bit better. Empty the trash. Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. Oh, wow.
Hmm?
I didn't realize how much CPU load doing this show puts on the computer. I just didn't know. Okay, so as far as I can tell, that sounds pretty good. And now we should have the ability to hear. So the problem that I've been having is when we archive, I tend to always end up having to mess with the compressor because you guys or me will be too loud or too quiet, and then I have to fuck with everything. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to like monitor that so that I know how it's going to sound like before I end up having to screw with it.
Mhm.
So I don't really know the best way to handle it because either I'm too loud or you're too loud, and there's not a happy medium. But c'est la vie. You doing blow over there, Chaz? What's going on? He's like, oh,
Yeah. Totally blow.
yeah, don't worry about me, man.
Yeah.
So, are you serious with this shit? We have one viewer. All right, there's a 10-minute warning.
We have one viewer?
Yeah, we have a viewer. Like, oh, now we have 0.
What's the viewer's name?
They dropped
Another
off.
Yeah, they hung up on us because all they heard was Chaz sniffling. Wow, that is so loud. You have no idea how loud that is. All right, so we're hijacking the audio. Maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe that's why it sounds weird. Okay, well, we're gonna. What if I bring you way down here? Now talk.
Okay.
Nope, doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
All right, well, I don't want to do a test because then I gotta fuck with the server and blah 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 blah. So we're gonna call it what it is, and it's gonna be great. I'm not worried about it. But everything looks good there. We have the song loaded. That sounds like a good volume. And then I drop it like this. Welcome to Silver Happy Hour motherfucking broadcast, bitches. We're not really on the air, Robinson. Don't worry. He like freaked out a little bit. I saw him. He had a mini panic attack. He looked up at his clock and was like, what the fuck? That was the fastest 10 minutes of my whole life. And I let it run for like 60 seconds, and then I just fade the volume down from my iPhone. It's beautiful. And then you guys will be able to hear the bumper music. This is gonna be awesome. All right. Then when we're ready to do a song in the middle, we just go back, we tap on it, and then the song plays. I said, how long is... Alright, so the delay is only a few seconds. Good, 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 good. Cool. Dude, we're on fire. This is great. And I have favorited it. So now I can get to it quickly and easily. Hey, so I have a question for you, Robinson, and maybe we can talk about it on the air because it'll be fun to talk about.
Okay.
But so I made my second large batch of kombucha.
Yeah, your second?
Yeah, my second
Okay.
big giant batch,
Okay.
and I tested it after 2 weeks, and it tasted like tea. Tested
Okay.
it after 3 weeks, still tasted like tea. I have now let this fucker sit and ferment for 5 weeks, and it still does not have a very strong fermented flavor. It hasn't gone bad. It's not molded. Nothing. The SCOBY still looks good. It's huge. It's like this big, but it like won't ferment. Now here's my question.
Okay.
The first time I did it, I used black tea, and it worked beautifully. 3 weeks, beautiful kombucha. This time I used green tea, and I don't know if that would make a difference. I don't know.
You got me.
All right, well, I just figured I'd ask. All right, we're almost 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm almost done inviting people.
Is anybody gonna come? All right, do not forget, we must mute our microphones during the music break, and also anytime you might need to sniffle, cough, take a shit, and flush the toilet. Do you know how to mute your microphone, gentlemen? Good.
Yeah.
Well, I know that one time when you were at the art gallery, it was not as obvious as we thought it should be.
Right. Well, I just needed to be remound.
Got it. But Chaz, do you know how to mute yours?
I just press the screen.
Oh, that's right. You're on your iPhone.
Hmm.
What if I mute mine? Is it muted? And now I'm
It's muted.
unmuted. Cool.
Yep.
Just making sure. But it makes a tink sound on my side. That's stupid. It goes tink. I'm telling you, eventually, one of these days, we're not going to need to have the fucking. Maybe I don't need to have GarageBand open anymore. I'm not going to fuck with it this time, but next week, I'm going to see if I can do the show without GarageBand open at all.
Jesus Christ.
You have a halo around your head, Robinson.
I do?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Oh.
Oh, you moved. You looked beautiful
Should I
and
turn off the
godlike.
backlight?
No, it looked cool. It looked like a halo. Like Beyonce.
Well, I don't want to have to get up for anything because I'm shirt cocking it tonight.
Okay. I hope you remember that during the musical break. He just gets up and turns his ass cheeks to the world.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I have a question.
Yeah. We have 1 minute.
If somebody were to like log on right now, would they just like see us sitting here doing whatever we're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so they don't have like a time frame when the show actually starts airing.
No, the show started airing at 11:30 on Google
What about YouTube?
and YouTube. Yeah, at 11:30. So it's been going this whole time.
Okay.
All right. Ready to broadcast, gentlemen?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Let me make sure we have this. It is almost exactly midnight. Does either one of you have Radio Valencia on and running anywhere quietly?
Nope.
No? Okay. That's all right. Hello and welcome to a Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are live, I tell you, on RadioValencia.fm and, no joke, YouTube via googly Hangouts and stuff. Now, once again, we're in a situation where we don't know if we are actually broadcasting. So, with my fingers crossed, we are indeed broadcasting live on Radio Valencia. Now, we do know that we are broadcasting live on the YouTube, and hopefully we're on Radio Valencia as well. So, this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Very well.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
Did anyone watch the fight tonight?
I heard about it, and you sound very echoey for some reason. Does anybody else hear that, or is it just me?
Echoey?
Yeah, it sounds like da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
Nope, I don't hear it.
Oh, you're echoey too, so it must just be however we're doing this thing tonight. So
Yep.
it's always something.
Yep. Yeah, I watched it over at my uncle's house, and 5 years, hundreds of millions of dollars, and all this apocalyptic hype, and no one died. It was just, kind of disappointing. I mean, really, it was just nothing.
Nobody died?
No, there were like no major moments, no major anything. It just kind of was like, okay, that's it. They make it sound like this Clash of the Titans type shit, and it's all like, two men going to spending years training and all this other shit 24/7, and then nothing happens.
Well, isn't that how it normally goes, though? Like, it's all hype. Like $160 million these jokers got paid. And then, I mean, at least this one went like 12 rounds, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea what fight you're even talking about.
It was the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight in Vegas for like the World Welterweight Championship. It was like, it's apparently for some reason been like so long coming, and no, it was just boring, really. I mean, it wasn't.
It was boring?
Okay, it was not as exciting as I thought it would be. I'll tell you what, though, the two fights before it were actually very entertaining.
Huh.
They were very entertaining.
Wow.
They were actually much more fun watching than Mayweather or Pacquiao.
That is so disappointing. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Well, Pacquiao walks in and he's got this I mean, apparently between now and the last time we saw him, he found Jesus or something, and so he came in with this like big bright smile on his face, and he was all happy and the whole time, and it was like, dude, get angry, get your game face on. And I don't know. He just didn't fight as hard as he could or as fast as he could. But yeah, overall, I'd say it was entertaining, but not what I was expecting.
Well, I hear a lot of clicking going on right now. Does anybody
I'm not clicking.
know where the? Oh, yeah, that's what it is. That is about as loud as a truck coming through the That's amazing. These cheap little microphones, right?
So sensitive, yeah.
And it just they do everything and anything they can to make whatever they hear as loud as everything else. So a little clicky pen. Yeah, I have a different microphone, but a little clicky pen literally sounded like somebody was taking a ladder and throwing it at your feet. Like, here's a fucking 30-foot ladder, and I'm going to throw it at you, and that's what it sounded like. So, that's just weird. We're going to invest in better microphones, ladies and gentlemen, but that's why you have to tell your friends and your family members about the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. We come to you live every single Saturday night, also known as Sunday morning, from midnight to 2 a.m. Pacific time, on radiovalencia.fm, and whenever we can figure out the technology, we like to do a Google Live Hangout, which you can see on YouTube. If you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/soberhappyhour, there are links to the Hangout that you can watch on YouTube. Now, wow.
I'm hearing that.
That was Robinson making sure we were actually on the air. So we broadcast this thing live every single week, and we know that people listen to and download the podcasts. So the more the merrier. And then eventually someday, when we get syndicated and picked up by 500 stations around the United States and Canada, then we can invest in better microphones. But until then,
and Vietnam.
And well, do they?
I have one listener in Vietnam right now.
And I bet your ass, this microphone was made in Vietnam.
You're probably right. A lot of equipment comes from Vietnam.
I would not be surprised if this microphone.
That's their number one export.
What is crack?
Broadcasting equipment is their number one export.
I was way off.
I did my research.
That's very cool. So the next time you go, you could probably get some microphones for cheap. Just a thought.
Well, I'm going in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So
that's very exciting. And
I'll find out where to get them.
And I promise you, if you are able to get on and do the broadcast, we will do a live broadcast from Vietnam.
I will be on. Of course, it'll be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday for me.
But that's okay.
So.
All right. Well, I know that I was driving. Oh, my God. I've done nothing but drive for the last 48 hours. I drove to Albuquerque, New Mexico from Phoenix Friday afternoon. Drove there. Checked in the hotel. Soda thingy. Hey, remember that mute button we talked about earlier?
Yeah. And just so you know, Chaz, anytime you make a little noise, your picture comes up on the main screen. So I'm just saying.
Now he's muted and he doesn't know. Oh, he does know. Okay. Remember last time, Robinson, when you were playing with the mute, when you were on location at the San Francisco Art Gallery, and there were a couple of times when, because you did a really great job tapping mute to keep the background noise down, but every once in a while you would forget to tap mute.
And I would tap it to talk?
Yes, and then you would mute yourself right before you'd start talking.
Right, yeah.
It's very, very funny. So anyway, I drove to Albuquerque, which is about 7 hours from Phoenix. Karate competition this morning in Albuquerque, and then got done with the karate competition and just drove back. And so I've been in the car for many hours in the last day, and that's my story. Thanks for listening.
Okay. You cut your hair.
I did. I cut my hair. It's been a few years,
Yeah.
and
So for any viewers who are watching who didn't see the show before, our host's hair was quite long. It was
It
down
was.
to the middle of your
Middle of the back.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, it was a couple years, and I don't know. It's about to be summer here. I think it almost hit 100 degrees today, and trying to, the only thing I dislike about having long hair is you can't just jump in a swimming pool and go swimming, because afterwards you're going to have this wet drippy hair, or it's going to be all nasty, and then you got to worry about washing it, and that's the only chore about having long hair that I do not like. And so, being that
Yeah.
the summer's here and my kids want to go swimming, and I would always have to either tell them no because I would be like, "Nah, I don't want to deal with my hair." Uh, Now, most gentlemen aren't familiar with this problem, but I know that you, Robinson, have had long hair for as long as I've known you, so you are familiar with this problem.
Yeah.
Chaz, on the other hand, I don't think you've ever had your hair long. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Actually, you are wrong. I used to have hair at least down to my shoulders. It's back when I was in, maybe junior high or high school.
That was kind of more the schlong, though, right? The short in the
Yes.
front, long in the back. The what we call a
No, that's a
mullet,
mullet.
right?
No, that is a mullet. It was not. It was all the way down around, like
Business in
around
the
here.
front, party in the back. So anyway, so yeah, how was we didn't get to see each other last weekend. Robinson had a prior engagement, and we decided to forego an episode without Robinson, and we played a repeat of an older episode, which I hope everybody enjoyed. I would guess even if we played a repeat every once in a while, we're still building our listener base. So there's probably quite a few listeners who would be listening who were not listening when that show first aired and are like, oh, hey, we're listening to the show. And they're like, wait a second. It's not February. These guys are lying. So yeah, we played a repeat. And now, at least this week, we'll have a podcast. That seems to be like everyone's way of listening. Their first choice is the podcast. So, I mean, that's fine. Don't get me wrong. I just think the live show's a lot of fun, too. Anyway. So, how was your week? Plural.
Me?
Whoever.
My week? My week has been very busy. My neck and upper back are very sore from doing ceiling work. I've been working on a ceiling, actually not for the week, but for about a month now.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to put some hot packs on it, and I think I need to put ice on it too.
I think that would be a good idea. You should alternate hot and cold. That's what they
Yes.
say is the best way to do it. Oops. I lost a headphone. What about you, Chaz? How was your week?
My week is good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Not much going on, man.
Anything exciting to share?
No, not really. Not much.
All right. Well, good to know.
Yes, always
Um,
good.
Yeah. All right then. Well, then let's get right to it.
What's our subject?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer it for you right now. So what we'd like to do is pick a topic for the show the day of the show. Unless it's going to involve like research or reading an article, because we know if that article is, a couple pages long, it might take Robinson a few days to read it, like physically. So picking the topic the day of gives us the day to think about it, but it doesn't give us too much time to think about it, where then we get all philosophical and we think too much, and when we think too much, bad shit happens, right? So the topic that we chose, I don't know if you got the message, I hope you did, but if you didn't, then we wanted to talk about in recovery, or when you're in the program, when or how do you start to live your own life again? And Chaz had a really concise way of saying it. So will you share that with us, Chaz?
Well, to kind of give you a background on the idea of it, and can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. To kind of give you a background on the idea, the concept of recovery has been around both in substance abuse and mental health for years. And the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, well, 1 year they defined it for substance abuse, and then they defined it for mental health, separate. And then they, like in 2011, they brought that definition together. And then they defined it yet again. So recovery just keeps getting defined over and over and over again. And the most recent thing they came out with basically had recovery, and I can't give you the definition off the top of my head, but it's like this big pamphlet now. Basically had recovery taking over a person's entire life.
Like forever.
Like, well, not necessarily being in recovery forever, but that every single part of a person's life was now part of their recovery. And in other words, it was almost like there was nothing left that could just be your life, that could just be something that was not seen through the lens of addiction, mental illness, recovery, or all those things. It's like there was nothing left of a life. So people weren't, it's like now people weren't living, they were just recovering.
Got it. So I guess my question would be, kind of on its surface, the first thing that came to mind when you were talking, how is that any different than, say, becoming a parent and starting a family, right? Like, I no longer get phone calls from my grandmother to just see how I'm doing, right? My grandmother calls me because she wants to know how my kids are doing. So that's kind of the first thing that came to my mind, is like there are things that we do in our life that, because the choice that we made to go down that road, that thing now defines us more so than maybe earlier in our life before we were defined by something. So the topic of recovery and sobriety and addiction, I think, takes you down a similar path. But I think the question becomes, is that A, necessary, and B, healthy? Go ahead.
And I'm glad you brought up that is it healthy part, because kind of one of the idea, or at least the reasoning behind choosing this, was that a family friend of ours recently, his wife left him. They were legally separated, and part of it is because Al-Anon has now become her entire life, and she left him
for Al-Anon
and her kids.
Okay.
In other words, moved out, left her kids at his house.
Sure. Yeah. No.
So in other words, Now, the thing is that it's not that Al-Anon or the programs or 12-step or anything like that. You can have a bad group.
Sure.
You know, you can have a group that has just lost their way and is way off the deep end because with 12-step and AA and all that, there's no like church. There's no there's no one who's going to come around and make sure that everyone's walking the line, you know.
No, well, there's nobody to hold you accountable, right?
Yeah.
The group is autonomous,
Mm-hmm.
so that group runs as that group will.
Which is a good thing, except for the very, very small portion where you get a group of just, you know, the folks who are really screwed up find out where the other folks who are really screwed up go to, and they just kind of accumulate. And
Right,
it
it's like
just,
you can almost guarantee that you're going to get laid if you hang out long enough in front of the abortion clinic.
okay, Jay.
It's the same thing.
Oh man.
So well, Robinson, what do you think about this? Because I know that you know people are in the program who are in recovery, not in any specific program, and all different walks of life. What do you think? Do you think that has to happen in order to be successfully sober, or can you have a balance and live a normal life and not be defined by this sobriety or recovery?
I think there's definitely a balance, and it depends on the person and the depth of recovery that they're in. And if they do need to do this, it's how long. It's not, I don't think it's forever, you know.
Sure.
Um, you know, it's if you're a runner and you're running with a group of other runners and you fall down, you know, are you going to just sit on the floor and sit on the ground? And no, you're going to try to get up. And maybe you've hurt yourself, and somebody will come along and help you and assist you until you can get your balance back, until you can recover the pain in your foot and deal with it enough to walk yourself to the sideline and get your own help. So it's just there's sometimes, not always, but sometimes you need someone to give you a hand up out of that hole for a minute. Maybe it's a bigger hole, maybe it's a deeper hole, and it takes more time to get out. You know, whatever the case may be. It's really hard to say though, because there are as many cases as there are people.
I like that analogy a lot, and I'll tell you why. If you are doing something in a group of people, and I like the analogy of like a group of runners, right? These are all people that get together 6 a.m. every morning and they go running. Or like the cyclists that you see in their cycling gear, and they go cycling around the neighborhoods in their fancy cycling pants, shorts. The reason I like that analogy so much is because, like you said, if I'm one of the runners in the group, so I have a group of sober addicts, and one of the runners falls down, and they pulled a hamstring, or they tore a hamstring. It was a serious injury. They hurt themselves.
Yeah.
The interesting part is not only will those other runners that are in that group, there will guaranteed be a few of them who will stop to help you up and make sure you're okay, but take it a step further, who better to help you manage that injury than other people who have maybe dealt with that same injury before? So now, kind of like I mentioned to you, alternate hot and cold on your sore shoulder muscles and your neck. That's because I've been there, right? I know that works better than just straight heat. With the runner analogy, the runners who have been through injury a couple of times will be better suited to help you than your girlfriend who has never run a day in her life. So I don't know. I really like that analogy. I think it's a great analogy because not everybody in the group is going to stop and help you up, right? They're going to keep going. But there will be a few people in the
I
group who
imagine
might
most
stop.
of them won't even notice that someone is down.
Right, exactly.
And then there's those self-centered people who are just moving along in their lives, don't give a shit about anybody else. They see you falling down, they're like, "Tough luck, you're on your own. I'm on my own path." And it's those, like you said, who have fallen and needed the help up and got it, and they're returning it or whatever the case may be. But everyone's, that's just how it is. It's kind of
And
it's a good metaphor.
right, and that's okay too, right? So the people that don't stop and they keep going because they're part of the group is 30 people and you were one person who fell down. You don't need all 30 people to stop and help you. If anything, that could be overwhelming, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen, too many arms reaching down to pick you up. But if two people stop, one of them is somebody who just got done recovering from an injury, the same injury. Oh man, what happened? Oh, you pulled a hamstring. Shit, here, let me tell you what you can do to recover faster. And then another person who's there just as a shoulder to lean on and help get you to the finish line. I love that analogy. I think it's such a good, and you can visualize it very easily. And even almost everybody's been part of some sort of a team in some
Right.
way at some point in their life. I like it.
And the guy who has fallen, he's the last thing he's going to do is turn and say, "Hey, can somebody help me up?" No, he's not going to do that.
Right.
Just like the alcoholic or the addict isn't going to, stand up and say to all of his friends, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict. Can somebody help me?" They would
Well,
probably just not believe him or something. But when they recognize it, they know it because they've been through it. Not everyone will recognize it.
and let's take the analogy even further. Let's say you're running by yourself
Okay.
and you're running down a busy, street somewhere, and
Okay.
you fall down and you eat shit, and you try to get back up, and you don't look injured. You're not bleeding, right? You pulled your hamstring. You fall down. People are headed to work and going into the shops and walking their dogs or whatever, and you're laying down on the ground, and you are now like looking up to the world around you saying, "Oh, help me, somebody help me, I've fallen," right? People are going to be like, "Oh, fuck that, I don't have time to help you." Or they might try to help you and potentially injure you worse. They don't know what they're dealing with. They're not runners. They have no idea. So running with a group of other runners, they've probably dealt with a lot of the same stuff that you are potentially going to deal with. And so the whole asking for help part, I think, also lends itself well to this analogy because the other runners, when you reach out a hand, somebody's going to come and pick you up, but they're also not going to baby you, right? They're not going to say, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't do this anymore," right? Like you hurt yourself. Maybe this isn't the right choice for you. Like somebody else in recovery is going to say, "Hey, I think in this analogy, you relapsed and now you're asking for help." Well, if you're that solo runner on the side of the street and you keep falling down every morning, people are eventually going to just pass you by because you're the idiot that
Yeah.
keeps falling down,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Tie your shoes, asshole. Like, what are you doing? So I just think that's so clever because everybody can visualize that in some way. So when you ask for that help, though, here's the question. And I think this is where Chaz's topic kind of comes into play. You have this big group of people that you run with, and they keep you motivated to run every day. And for the first few months, you get up every morning and you run with them every single day. And they pick you up if you fall down, and some of them stay back with you because you're not as fast as the rest of the group yet. They're teaching you a better form, better stride. They encourage you to invest in a better pair of shoes. And then all of a sudden, though, what happens when your life changes and you now have to go to work by 7 o'clock every morning, and you can't go running at 6:30 anymore because you have a job to get to. Do you stop running, or do you feel confident and comfortable enough that you can start running by yourself? Chaz.
Uh, Actually, the way that I would see it going, like the problem with, in regards to what the topic I came up was, would the metaphor would go on to become, okay, you get up, you run, you feel good, you feel healthy and everything else, but then you realize this group, that's all they do is run. And they get you to continue running with them, and that it eats into your life. In other words, you can't go to work because now running has taken, precedence over that. You can't, you can't even raise a family or anything. In other words, no matter what, this one other thing takes precedence over everything else in your life.
Yeah.
And that really is what I was talking about, insofar as finding balance between, whatever your recovery is and whatever your life is. And you can, have recovery in your life fine, but it's like, just don't let it consume everything,
But does it need to consume for a period of time in order for you to get healthy and comfortable and familiar with the process?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, there are times when you need different intensities of care and different intensities of work and stuff. And but when it starts to take over those things, like it starts to destroy your family, your relationships, it starts to destroy your work, it starts to destroy other things. How is that any different than an addiction?
Sure. I agree with you. But I think what's interesting is, for the most part, let's say you are starting this new regimen where you're going running, and the idea was that you were going to start doing this to get healthy, right? And your girlfriend, your wife, your spouse, whatever, your family is very supportive, right? They're supportive of you getting up early every morning and going running, and not being around for breakfast anymore. And then every once in a while you have evening runs that you do as part of the training as well. You go to a different place. They're going to be supportive of that for a while, right? Because it's a new thing, and they're supportive of you getting fit and getting healthy, especially if maybe you were struggling, you were overweight, or had developed type 2 diabetes, or getting fat and just weren't happy with yourself. They're going to be supportive. Here's the trouble, is eventually most, not all, but most, you know, husbands, girlfriends, boyfriends, significant others, employers, they're going to expect that at some point the intensity of starting that routine and learning by doing 7 days a week, they're going to expect that eventually it's not going to be something you need to do as hardcore, right? So I, I use myself as an example. When I first got sober, I went to meetings every single day, 7 days a week, sometimes multiple times per day. And my family was very supportive of this. And that lasted for probably the better part of a year, where I went every single day. Thankfully, there were so many meetings throughout the day in the Phoenix area that I, I could go early in the morning before anybody needed me, or late at night, when everybody else was already going to bed, or in the middle of the day when, as a lunch break or something like that. That was all. It was all very doable. And then little by little, I started to need it less, and I also could tell that maybe my wife wasn't as fond of this every single day being gone for a couple of hours, and you know that just it just started to infringe upon my regular life.
It becomes more
And
of a burden on her when you're absent from the family.
correct. And the whole point of getting sober was kind of to not be absent from the family anymore. So I think Chaz hit the nail on the head saying your recovery can become an addiction. And that's not good for anybody.
Mhm.
So,
And for some people, it's like you can't. They really can't even see it, because again, it's like an addict not knowing they're an addict or something like that, um, where it just becomes so all-encompassing and overwhelming.
well, they
Um,
excuse it. They make
yeah,
they justify it by saying straight up, how could you give me shit for this, husband or girlfriend? I'm going to an AA meeting because I'm an alcoholic and I'm sober, and now you're on my ass about going to this. Like, how dare you, right? It's an easy and very slippery slope because I've seen it happen. So here's a question. If you have a family member, significant other, who has gotten to this point where they're no longer supportive of the daily routine that is starting to take away from family time, like Robinson mentioned, what do you do?
yeah. How do you pull an intervention on someone who's recovering?
Well, but what do you do as the recovering addict? How do you deal with that? And there are a few ways that you could choose to deal with it. You could choose to deal with it by explaining the necessity of the situation and asking for understanding and patience and support. You could get angry and point the finger and say, you're being unsupportive and I'm going to relapse and it's going to be your fault. Or you could scale it back a bit and say, hey, I'm going to agree to, you know, only go in a couple times a week. But if you're a recovering addict and you are incapable of staying sober unless you attend daily program meetings, they don't have to be 12-step program, but daily program meetings that involve other people, if it is required in your life for a daily routine like that, my question to you becomes, are you successfully in recovery? That would be my question, because I don't know that you could say that you are successful in your own recovery if not going to a meeting every single day would lead to your demise.
Well, one way of looking at that would be saying that, okay, my addiction or my mental illness was taking things in my life from me. Let's say one thing would be like a marriage or so, or my relationship with my kids, my family. Um, that would be something I would want to recover. I would want to recover the relationship I had with my family, with my wife, or with whoever. And so if my recovery started interfering with my recovering, then there's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I
So,
I'm thinking about somebody I just did some work for, and I showed up on a Sunday to do some work because there was a time limit. He couldn't show up. He could not be there because he had his Sunday service his Christian religion. That's such an ingrained part of his routine. And I was just thinking about, how does your routine that you have to go through in order for you to maintain your, sanity or whatever the case may be, how does it affect the people around you? And I'm thinking, here I am doing the work, and he should be here too to help me, but he's got to go to church. But that's his thing, and I can't take that away from him. Or if somebody is, uh, you know, a woman marries somebody from the Middle East who has to pray at every sunset and sunrise, and it's like that takes away from this part of his routine, takes away from the family for that moment, and you just have to deal with it. If you're, for as far as the
Here,
family goes, if you really want to maintain the relationship with that person who is a recovering addict, then you just have to put up with it. You really do.
I agree to an extent, but I also look at it from a slightly different perspective. The praying 5 times a day Muslim, or the goes to church every Sunday Christian, or the goes to a 12-step meeting every day recovering addict, I think they're similar, but I think there are higher stakes from one to the next. And I think anyone who's in a position where they would sacrifice something important in their lives because they have to go to church. It is so important. I would question where they were at mentally and spiritually. So you can't miss church for this important reason. Is that healthy, right? Is it? And I don't know, because that's a tough question to answer. But I don't know
Well,
what the project.
that's where the addiction becomes that's the point of when recovery becomes an addiction itself. Like this person, I mean, like I think for the Sunday guy, the Christian, it's a social gathering as far as I'm
Right.
concerned. It's the same, the same preachers preaching the same stuff every Saturday, every Sunday morning, but it's not so much that preaching, it's the gathering of the people in your community that you have your social connection with. That's what he's addicted to. He
So
has got to have that connection.
you don't think it's that if he doesn't go, that he will become some sort of depraved, adulteress or something. It's more that he would choose that over almost anything else because it makes him feel good. It makes him feel like part of
Right.
something.
It's part of his emotional stability or whatever it is that drives him to do that keeps him sane and normal, and whether it's emotional, social, whatever the case may be, it is different for everyone. That's what he needs. So I guess you could
How's
say,
that different from an addict though? That needs that needs the fix to be normal, to feel all right. They need the drink. They need the fix. Like, to me,
they
that
need
sounds very
church.
similar.
Yeah, yeah. But what's the result? I mean, who's in harm? Who is being harmed if that fix is not uh, had?
Right. I
And with
Yeah.
alcohol, you're needing to, consume the alcohol. That's harm. That's when addiction becomes harmful.
Yeah. And I think I've seen recovery programs become harmful. And I think that's why we're having this conversation, is the recovering addict who can't go a day without their recovery program is potentially putting themselves in a sticky situation, because if the recovery program were to go away, or the family were to demand that they stop attending this meeting for whatever reason, does that mean they're going to inevitably fall back into using?
Well, also look at it like this. What if they're going to go on a trip to a country where, and I'm not sure there are any anymore, but just somewhere where there's not going to be any meetings, or somewhere where there's not going to be any churches, or something like that.
Safari in
It's like
Africa.
Yeah.
somewhere, yes. Either way, whatever that may be, the analogy is that it prevents you from doing something. It prevents you from being able to live life to the fullest, because now your life is, in other words, everything must then be structured around it. One thing I can give from my own experience, and this is something that I need in my life, and that I do have to take into consideration with some things, and that's with medication. I always have to make sure that no matter where I go in the world, I've always got enough with me. So if I go overseas, typically I take about a month and a half supply, just in case I happen to get stuck over there. Um, but either way, I have to plan around those types of things. Um, but when it comes to things that are just really going to tie you down and really going to just constrain you, eventually it's just going to get toxic again.
Well, and I think that's why it's important that when I share my experience is such that I no longer feel the need where I'm at in my recovery to attend meetings on a daily basis. And that's just me. Now, if I needed to, if I felt that that was important to maintaining my sobriety, I'm fairly certain that the people closest to me in my life would be okay with that. However, there would come a point in time, I can guarantee it, that it would prevent me doing things that would be seen as more important. And it's difficult to explain to someone the importance of something 7 days a week. Well, you can't just like with medication, we get it. You can't miss a dose of medication, right? That could be dangerous. But with going to a 12-step meeting, missing a day is not on its own dangerous to an addict. So when you have a family member pushing you saying like, hey, we have this vacation planned, we're going on an African safari, there's not a 12-step program there, bring your big book, you'll be fine. That's a situation that nobody but that addict is going to fully comprehend, whether or not it's dangerous or it's a bad idea or it will be okay. So another part of it is knowing yourself, right? And knowing whether or not you will be okay if you were put in that situation. So people ask me, okay, well, when does the transition happen? And I have other outlets. See, that's the important part, is I have this program. I have a sort of a daily routine that I do in my mind, right, while I'm in the shower in the morning, where all it involves is sort of thinking within and kind of going over what is commonly referred to as a gratitude list. The things in my life that I am grateful for. And whatever bullshit might exist, something to be annoyed about or angry with or frustrated by can't consume me because I try to remind myself daily of the things in my life that I am grateful for, that I'm happy are there, and that didn't get taken away from me by addiction and using, right? And I think that's how it works for me, but I can't say that it's going to work that way for anybody else.
Yeah, I knew a guy who had a lot of control in his life, and he liked challenges. You might even say he was kind of addicted to overcoming certain things, and so he would put himself intentionally in a position of where he might get caught up. And then suddenly his challenge was to overcome this thing. And then he discovered heroin, and he would intentionally get himself high for just those few days that it takes to make your body say, okay, you can't stop now. You got to have more because this is good stuff and your body likes it and your brain likes it. And he would intentionally put himself in that position because he liked the challenge of overcoming um, addiction and actually putting himself through cold turkey on a regular basis. That's that's what that reminds me of. I don't know why. I just thought I would tell that story because that person eventually lost the challenge and became addicted full time. But he's better now.
And it drives me to the brink of insanity that no matter how strong an individual thinks that they are, no matter how much control somebody thinks they have, when it comes to drug and alcohol addiction, there is no nobody. Honestly, I say this because I've yet to be proven wrong, but there's nobody who, when put up against it, is strong enough to continue to play that game. And I unless so something that we've talked about before a few times is moderation, right? Robinson, you talk about your lifestyle, especially when you were a little bit younger, of partying hard and drugs and alcohol and everything else, but knowing limits and moderation, right?
Right.
And not wanting to get to that point. So when you talk about playing with fire, like the story that you just told is a story of playing with fire, right? Where eventually the person who's playing with fire is going to get burned. But the difference is getting burned playing with fire may not kill you, right? Like you may not set yourself on fire and then burn to death. But playing with the fire of a drug such as, heroin, like I don't care who you think you are or who you may be, eventually you're playing with that fire, you're going to get burned, and it's going to be much worse than, singeing your eyebrows off playing with actual fire. And I mean, shit. I don't think you'll talk to a single addict, whether in recovery or still actively using. You won't ask one drug addict when they decided to become an addict and get an answer, right? Because that's never the plan. The plan isn't to become a drug addict. The plan was to use drugs because you liked the drugs, and then the drugs took hold, or the alcohol, or the gambling, or
Yeah.
the
Your
sex,
brain
or
liked
whatever.
it more than you did.
Right. And
Which is the same
nobody.
thing, which is, I think, the same thing for anything, including the guy who was addicted to cold turkey.
Right.
The brain liked the challenge, liked overcoming the challenge, but then there was that flipping point where the brain, so as strong as the person is that is overcoming those challenges, it's that same strength that's going to get him addicted. So no matter how strong you are, that's exactly how strong your addiction will be.
And that's a bitch. Right?
Yes.
Well, because you also look at it too. If you think of this person, eventually you're going to try to occupy the same space of your brain simultaneously with two different challenges. And if you are consumed with the challenge of quitting heroin, that is an all-consuming challenge, right? You're not going to casually kick heroin cold turkey, right?
Right.
So if there are any other challenges that present themselves in your life simultaneously, one is going to lose, right? Whether that's relationships or finances or health or you name it, if there's another challenge that presents itself, one will outweigh the other. And I would imagine that had a second challenge or third or fourth challenge not piled on top of itself, who knows? Maybe this person could have continued their ridiculous lifestyle of challenging themselves over and over and over again. But being confronted with a secondary challenge, then that primary challenge has to become secondary. And it doesn't take very long for an opiate addiction to basically make you put all your cards down on the table and say, "All right, I'm no match for this. What do I do now?" There's a there's a song, and I'm hearing myself. I'm hearing an echo from somebody's computer. Um, Chaz is muted, so I'm pretty sure it's not Chaz. There's a song by a band. They're actually local here from the Phoenix area, but they're a very popular, nationally famous band, internationally famous band called Jimmy Eat World. And there's a song, and part of the lyrics of the song in the chorus always meant a lot to me for the last handful of years. Is "You're not bigger than this, not better. Why can't you learn?" And it's a song called "Lucky Denver Mint," and I think it's about a coin, a lucky coin. And whether or not it's about drugs or addiction, I don't know. I don't care. But that song, the chorus of that song, where he says over and over again, "You're not bigger than this. You're not better than this. Why can't you learn?" is it was kind of a mantra in my head for a long time, where an addict will continually try to convince themselves that they've overcome their addiction, right? I am no longer a drug addict, so I can start using the drugs again because I understand them better now. I'm bigger than these drugs. I'm better and I'm stronger. And because of my awareness, I can prevent the trouble. And then they start using again, and they're always wrong. Always. Like
Always.
I don't know, especially with like hardcore drugs that, I mean, really grab you by the balls drugs. You If you're a heroin user and you stop and you start using again, I would say, and I'm making this statistic up, full disclosure, but I would say 99% of the time you're probably going to get back into using heroin again. It may not grab you by the balls immediately. You might think you've got it under control for a little while, but let's be honest, you're probably going to start using again, and you're gonna
Yes.
like I don't know anybody who went from a full-blown heroin junkie, got sober, and then was able to casually use heroin on the weekends. It just doesn't happen. And Chaz is smiling because he thinks that's ridiculous, but I kid you not, Chaz, there are many, 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 if not most, if not all, heroin addicts who get sober who have that moment at some point in their sobriety where they tell themselves, I'm cured.
Or I've got this covered. Yeah.
I've got this licked. Where's the heroin? And then they use, and then they go, then 3 months later they're going, shit, I was wrong, and now I'm broke, and
Unemployed and living on the street. Yeah.
I'm homeless, and well, you know what? I guess because I'm unemployed and homeless, I guess I should just use heroin. What else do I have? And then you're on that vicious merry-go-round of doom. So I know this is a very uplifting conversation. I'm sure it's... Oh, there you are, Chaz. We can see more than just your boobs now. That's what we were looking at before. Or at least I was. You're welcome. So, when we come back from our break, I think we should change it up a little bit. I put out a request on the Facebooks for anyone and everyone who wanted to share with us their clean time, how long they've been sober for.
Yes.
And that way we could say their name if they wanted us to on the air. We could celebrate them, and then have a discussion. I got like 5 responses, which was more than I was expecting to get, to be honest. And I wanted to take the time to give them a shout out, celebrate their clean time, and then from there we could kind of have an open discussion about whatever we want. But it is about that time. It is 1 o'clock in the a.m. The Pacific time. We normally take a little musical interlude here that Chaz and Robinson, for the last few months, have never been able to hear our musical interlude because of some technical limitations. But I am hopeful that we have overcome that technical limitation through the magic of the iPhone. So, without further ado, this is I thought it was fitting because this song is about addiction. It's strange. A lot of Arbor Circle's songs are about either addiction or sex
Or some bitch.
or some bitch.
Oh, that is addiction, isn't it? No, that's
That's part of the two. That's kind of when you combine addiction and sex, you usually end up with some bitch involved. So this is one of those songs. It's a song called "Treading Water," and it's a kind of long one. So we get like a 6.5-minute break to go potty or do whatever we need to do. But you are listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on Radio Valencia, and we're going to play you a little tune while we take a break. If you're watching on YouTube, we will be back shortly. Please don't go away. And 5 minutes. Say
roughly.
What? It's 6.5 minutes.
6.5 minutes. Okay.
It's roughly 6.5 minutes, but you'll be able to hear it this time, so you'll know when we're back.
Yes.
Because the song will be over, and I will be talking, and then you'll be like, "Oh shit."
And
So
you'll be talking, and I'm shirt cocking, and I need to make sure that I pause
stay,
the.
stay
Okay.
low, right? So you can mute your microphones or whatever you need
Oh,
to do.
all right.
All right, gentlemen. Here's a little song by Arbor Circle called "Treading Water," and you're listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on Radio Valencia. We will be right back in 6.5 minutes. So enjoy. Your position is mine. Strange, didn't know it was time. Straight from you, went for the death of myself. True, have a step to unwind. Now I know you're the reason why. Treaded border, still we die. Eat it up till you're satisfied. Cheated on my mind. You should've known how to fly. Blue, break it off, you'll be fine. Straight from the depth of what's left of myself. Break ties and FaceTime your fucking despair. Write it out. Now I know I'm the reason why. Cherry water, still we try. Shake it off 'cause it feels real nice. Cheated on my life. Now I feel like the reason why. Treading water saved my life. Breathing out, see the pretty lights. Feeling out of time.
I think we lost someone.
Yeah, I don't think he knows it.
There we are. There's our host. Yeah, the song's over.
What?
Yep.
Yeah.
You just
It
might have
wasn't
said.
over.
was
It's
been-
just spinning.
We've been sitting here chatting, talking, waiting for you to come back.
That's weird because it has 2 minutes and 13 seconds left.
Ah.
It just stopped in the middle of it?
Yep.
Well, what the shit? Oh, now it's starting over. Lord. Alright, well, we'll edit that part out.
Still getting that echo?
Yeah, well, that was fun. I guess next time I'll have to sit and monitor it. I was putting my bird to bed. And she was just so cute, I couldn't just leave her there. She was going tweet, tweet, tweet.
Bird to bed?
Yeah, putting my bird to bed.
Which bird?
Opie.
Opie.
Opie's the only bird that gets put to
You
bed. She's
You
the
only have one bird
princess.
to put to bed?
Only one bird to put to bed.
Tell me about your pets. Let's talk about your pets. Because that's your addiction now.
Well, so if we want to talk about addiction, and I can really hear an echo now, so I'm not sure what that's all about. I think it's on your end, Robinson.
It is.
You
Because
need,
I
you
didn't
need
have my
headphones.
headphones on.
Ah, I see. So, my wife, who is lovely, and I love her dearly, she likes animals sometimes more than she likes me, and that's okay. I can be a shit sometimes, and typically pets they are not so shitty. But we ended up we had a couple of dogs, and then we ended up with a third dog, and then she was approached to foster rescued dogs. And fostering rescued dogs is challenging, but also very rewarding. And so over the course of the last few years, we've had, dozens of foster dogs come through the house. And sometimes they'll stay for a couple of days, sometimes for a couple of weeks, and sometimes for even a couple of months, depending on, how messed up they are. I don't know. I was gifted by the Lord with the ability to help recuperate really effed up dogs. And then there's been some times where the dog has been just kind of beyond help in terms of, they are mean and aggressive and horrible towards everybody, but they for some reason really love me and my family. And in a couple of those instances, they've ended up being permanent fosters, where maybe someday in the future they might be adopted out somewhere, but at this point, probably not. So a couple of our dogs are exactly that. One little black and white Chihuahua that looked like a cow when we got her, so I named her Moo. And Moo hates everybody, like is petrified of every human being except for me. And she licks my toes when I walk around the house, and she sleeps with me at night. But if anybody comes into the house, she is barking from the corner, scared to death. And one time I was holding her, and we had some people over trying to calm her down, because we normally have to lock her in a bedroom upstairs when we have anybody over because she just goes crazy. But she was kind of mellow, and I thought, oh, here's an opportunity. Let's see if she likes this woman who was over at the house. And I handed her to this lady, and she took a shit all over this lady because she was just so scared to be touched by another. Because I assume she used to just be abused wherever she lived before here, just kicked and hit and beat up and tortured or something, because the way she responds when anybody goes to touch her is to just pee and squeal like somebody's killing her, and it's really sad. So we've ended up with, a half dozen dogs. Thankfully, I live in a fairly good-sized house where, it doesn't, and they're mostly small dogs, so you can't really, it's not that big of a deal. But it makes Rachel happy, and guess what? If it makes her happy, it makes me happy, and I don't care. But from rescuing dogs, then came a cat, and the cat is pretty cool. And Chaz actually has a cat that was adopted to him through Rachel from her pet people. Two, actually. Yeah, he's correcting me. He has two adopted cats who I believe would have been either taken to the pound if not adopted. But most of the dogs that we have, with the exception of the three that were our pets that we adopted intentionally, were actually on the list to be euthanized within 24 hours if we had not taken them in. So they would be dead. And then the saddest story of the pets that we have, with the exception of the birds, because they were also being mistreated and living in these horrible conditions. One, Opie, the bird I was just telling you about, was on a diet of nothing but peanuts. And to a layperson, the bird liked peanuts. Why wouldn't I give the bird peanuts? Peanuts. Birds like nuts. Sure, you can have peanuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but most people don't know that if you feed a parrot peanuts and they don't have anything other than peanuts, they will end up, you basically create foie gras out of their liver, and instead of living 30 or 40 years, they might live 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And you've basically slowly tortured and killed this animal. Well, we have a dog named Daisy. And Daisy is a shepherd mix, and she's probably like 40 pounds. And when we got her, she was 12 years old. And she had lived her whole life in the backyard of someone's house. And let's not forget, we live in Phoenix, Arizona, where in the summertime it's not unusual for it to be 115 degrees. Add concrete to that, and you're probably more like 130 degrees. And she lived her whole life outside. And the people that owned her separated and decided at age 12, after Daisy was blind and deaf, that Daisy was too big of a hassle to keep around any longer. So they had planned to take her to the vet and have her euthanized, because that was the humane thing to do for this decrepit, aged dog that had no life left to live. So Rachel caught wind of this through Chaz, that, hey, this dog Daisy's going to get put down, not because she's sick, not because she's mean, not because she's bad, but because she's old. And Rachel said, well, I'd like to meet Daisy, and if she's on her last leg, if she's on her way out halfway dead anyway, then we'll give her a nice place to live for her last few months of her life, instead of having her put down. So we get Daisy. Daisy comes to hang out with us, and she's immediately thrilled beyond belief to be inside the house and to be cuddled and coddled and played with, and given toys and a bed to lay on, and a good balanced diet and attention. And she started out calm and shy and kind of hung out by herself and didn't really interact much, to here we are a year later. Now she's 13 years old, and she is as rambunctious and playful as are any of the dogs that we have that are only a couple of years old. And yes, she is still blind and she is still deaf, but you can tell that she's happy and she's healthy and she's thriving, and she'll probably she'll live another handful of years regardless of her age. And otherwise, if we hadn't taken Daisy in, she would absolutely have been dead by the hands of a veterinarian whose job it is to protect animals. But if you pay them money, they will gladly give your dog a shot and kill them. So that is my pet situation, which most people think is ridiculous and cannot imagine living with the number of animals that live in my house. But I could not imagine not living and doing what Rachel has done and what we do as a family to take care of and give these animals a home that they are happy and healthy in.
Yes, I have a lot of my cats came from the stray neighborhood. The guy who lived in the back, who was you knew him, didn't you? Sam Roberts. Yeah, he
I knew
was
Sam,
just
absolutely.
feeding all the neighborhood stray cats. Were you around when he died?
No, I had already left.
You had already left. Yeah. Okay. So we just continued to keep feeding them, and instead of letting the Humane Society come or animal control come and take them all away. So same. I
Yeah.
mean, we just cut a hole in the door. Now they come in and out. And oh, by the way, public service announcement. I made a bad decision of buying a really good deal on cat food at
Mm-hmm.
Grocer's Outlet, and it was like a 30-pound bag of cat food for $15. Hey, you can't beat that. And these are just neighborhood stray cats. Who cares if they eat good food or not? I'm not going to go out and buy them like Imes or something. But I ended up with a bunch of sick cats.
Hmm.
One of them I had to take to the hospital because he wouldn't eat and wasn't drinking, and they all have upper respiratory system
Wow.
problems. And so I realized just not more than a few days ago that was the cause of the problem, and I got rid of that food and got some new food, and now they're all eating and drinking again. And
Huh. Chinese
so,
cat
yeah,
food.
a good deal is not always a good deal when it comes to pet food. It was probably at Gross Out for a good reason.
Yes. And but I've also learned the hard way that the difference between your kind of lower mid grade pet food and your higher grade pet foods are almost the difference is almost nothing, right? So when we're talking bottom shelf pet food made with sawdust and fillers, yeah. And then when we're talking about your super ultra premium pet food, there's a pretty significant difference there. But if you're talking middle of the road pet food on the low end of the price scale and on the high end of the price scale, the difference there is almost nothing at all. If you read the ingredient list, a lot of them are actually made by the same companies, just rebranded, and the kibble is shaped different. So if you have one dog, then by all means, buy the Royal Canine or the Blue Buffalo, like the good shit, the banana cognac of dog food, right? That's better than buying them the middle of the road stuff. But if you're on a budget, instead of buying the super, grocery outlet X brand, buy something on the lower end of the mid-range. You don't have to break the bank, and just look at the ingredient list. Look at every pet food by law has to contain an ingredient list and a percentage breakdown of protein, fat, and a couple other things. And when you look at the expensive stuff versus the less expensive stuff, you'll notice that the percentage breakdowns in the ingredients are almost identical across the board until you get to the ultra premium or the super bargain basement stuff. So by all means, don't break the bank unless you really plan on going ultra premium, because buying the higher end of the national brand is not going to give you a better product than buying the less expensive, potentially the store brand. And it's a way of, and maybe in some person's case, the difference between rescuing one dog and rescuing two dogs is how much is it going to cost to feed these dogs. And better food, believe it or not, a dog or cat will eat less of the better food than they will of the cheap food, because the cheap food doesn't fill them up, and then they need to eat more, because an animal is not like a human. They're not just eating for sustenance, they're eating to maintain, whatever. And if they're not getting the nutrients that they need, so they need to eat more and more and more, you end up wasting money with the cheap shit, because you think you're saving money, but you end up using twice as much. So that's a public service announcement.
That's true. I when I had my one cat sooner, I would go to the grocery store and buy one whole chicken.
Yep.
Grind it up and put it in grind it up into a meal and put it in ice cube trays, and my cat would eat one ice cube worth of pure meat. No fillers, no rice, no wheat, nothing that you would find in cat food.
Yep.
And that was enough. That was enough to satisfy her for an entire day. It was enough protein because she didn't do much. She sat around all day, so she didn't need a lot of protein. But yeah.
Well, cats are carnivores. Cats don't. They're not omnivores like dogs. They won't naturally eat the shit that's in most cat foods. And so, even if you were to go to a butcher and buy a chicken scraps, basically, they've broken down chickens for breasts and thighs and wings or whatever, they will, in some cases, give you, a box full of chicken back, and it may not have meat left that you or I would pick off and consume, but a cat will gladly, as long as the chicken hasn't been cooked, a cat will gladly get all the bits and pieces off of that chicken carcass, and that is a much better meal for that cat than any cat food that you could purchase from the store. And most people, have no concept of that, because it's easier to buy kibble and put it in a bowl, and that's the end of it. But if you have one cat or a couple of cats and you go to the local deli counter and say, hey, do you have any chicken carcasses? Sometimes they'll give them to you to make soup with or whatever. But you can, as long as it doesn't smell rancid and hasn't been sitting around for days, your cat will happily eat a chicken carcass, and they'll pick it down to just pure bone. It's amazing. So, anyway, believe it or not, this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, which typically has nothing to do with pets and animals. But just like our kombucha episode, sometimes we get off on tangents that have nothing to do with what we originally came here to talk about. But I like to believe that that's the reason that people listen to this show, because it is informative, and we talk about things that matter to us. We can put this show in the culture section of the podcast world, because we don't just talk about drugs and addiction and recovery. We talk about all kinds of stuff, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But that being said,
yes,
I would like to take a moment and celebrate with my pad of paper those individuals that took the time to shoot us a message on Facebook or an email and let us know that they're listening, but also let us know that they are themselves in this land we call recovery. And I want to wish them good luck, and I want to encourage them to continue to tell their story and to talk to other addicts or alcoholics or nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Be on the show because we'd love to have you live on the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on Radio Valencia and everywhere on the internet. So we have a couple of people on deck. I have 2 or 3 individuals on deck right now who have offered to be on the show, and it's just a matter of figuring out the details. And hopefully, within the next couple of weeks, we can get these people on the show to do a live, I don't want to call it an interview so much as it would just be, come on and tell your story, and you'll be a guest host, because an interview would mean that you have something to sell, right? You're trying to plug something. But these people aren't trying to sell anything. They don't have anything to plug other than their own recovery story. And we'd love to hear it. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be very exciting. And I also have a medical professional in the psychiatric world who will be joining us for an episode of the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. She works in the prison system, and she works with criminals who are in prison, a lot of which are struggling with drug and alcohol problems. So she has agreed to come on the show when she is in town next. She will do it live. So we're not exactly sure when that will be. We're hoping that will be sometime this summer, and we'll have her on, and she will grace us with her presence and do an episode of the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast with us. So those are the exciting things coming for the Sober Happy Hour. But without further ado, I would like to make mention of these lovely individuals and their sobriety. So, in no particular order, aside from the order that they came into my email box, I don't really have any fanfare. I have no fancy way of doing this, so I figure we'll just read their names and what they said. Sound good?
Works for me.
Perfect. So, all the way from Sacramento, California, we have a friend of the show. I've never met this person before, but she reached out and she let us know. Her name is Monique from Sacramento, who it sounds like, with 90 days sober, it is very possible that Monique has been sober whilst listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. Now, I don't want to take credit for her sobriety. Chaz is making a face because he knows that what we were about to say was something along the lines of taking credit for her sobriety. Which is exactly what we will do. So congratulations to you, Monique, 90 days when you wrote that email. And if I had a clap track, I would use it. So cheers to you, Monique.
Monique, nobody can take credit for your sobriety except for you. So cheers to you.
Amen.
And a toast.
True. And a toast. With butter.
Where's my wine?
Toast with
That's
butter
awesome.
and jam. And then a very fun name, a young lady named Phoebe. Every time, and I'm sure this is not the first time, but I think Phoebe, I think friends. I apologize, I just can't help myself. But Phoebe is from Mesa, Arizona, and she is 4 years and 2 months sober.
Yes.
As of
Go Phoebe.
This last week. 4 years, almost 4.5 years. That is awesome. Congratulations to you as well, Phoebe. Toast with butter. We have Mike. Hey, not me. from Tempe, Arizona. Hey, that's your neck of the woods, Chaz.
Yes, it is.
He's a year sober. That's actually a really big deal. Congratulations to you, Mike. Kudos. A year sober. I remember celebrating a year of sobriety. You get the big, heavy metal chip in the program with a year of sobriety, and you also, in the programs, you get to raise your hand at the beginning when they announce. They say, "Can everybody with a year or more of sobriety please raise your hand so that the newcomer knows that the program works?" And you get to raise your hand. And I remember the first time I got to raise my hand, and that was very exciting. So I raise my hand to you, fair Michael. Not like this, just like this. So happy sober birthday, Mike. Continued success. We have somebody named Khaled. So we may want to take it easy on the Muslim jokes. I'm just saying. I know that we had an Al Qaeda person trying to break into the Sober Happy Hour live stream a few months ago. But that doesn't mean that they're all bad. Just the extremists from the ISIS. So Khaled, I
Just stop while you're ahead.
quit while you're ahead. Quit while you're ahead. Khaled is not listening anymore. He already turned off the program. But Khaled was actually from San Francisco, so I bet he's pretty liberal and he's pretty cool, right? Like, he doesn't mind the jokes because he gets it. It's a joke. He watches the Bill Maher program. You know, he's cool like that. Don't worry about it. He's laughing. He's 30 days sober, which is awesome because 30 days doesn't sound like a very long time to the layperson. But if you've ever been, say that again.
It's a very good milestone.
It is, because if you've ever been addicted to something, 30 days is a fucking lifetime. I will tell you that I couldn't even put together 30 hours, let alone 30 days, when I was struggling in my addiction. And then we have Kyle, who is from Phoenix, who is, like I said, this was in no particular order, but if we were putting them in order, Kyle would have been at the top of the list because Kyle is celebrating 2 weeks of sobriety. 2 weeks! So I hope that by the time we have announced his 2 weeks of sobriety that he is nearing 3 weeks, and that is very awesome because 2 weeks is nothing to scoff at. 2 weeks is the beginning of what will hopefully be a very long time in recovery and sobriety from whatever it is that ails you, Kyle. Congratulations to your 2 weeks of sobriety. And like I said, if you are in recovery and you want a shout out on the Sober Happy Hour radio podcast, all you must do is shoot us an email or a tweet or a Facebook message or a smoke signal or send a carrier pigeon, and we will gladly read your first name only and how long you've been sober and where you are from. Those are the only requirements. We want to say where you're from, we want to say your first name, and we want to say how long you've been sober. I don't care if you've been sober 20 years or you've been sober 20 days. We want to recognize the fact that you are the biggest reason that we do this show, because not only do we hope to help some peoples get sober, but we also hope that this program might help some people stay sober. So congratulations to all of you that I just mentioned, all 5 of you this week, and hopefully next week we'll have some more that we can read. Any length of sobriety is worth celebrating, and my hat goes off to you, and you have my utmost respect for even attempting to get sober. I know personally that it is the hardest thing you have ever done. So kudos.
I would also like to add to that for some of you who are new at this, like Kyle, we're looking forward to announcing your 3rd week of sobriety next Saturday. However, There is absolutely no shame in announcing Kyle has 3 days of sobriety. I'm not saying that we are hoping for that in any way, but if that happens to be the case, please share that with us because people need to know that recovery is difficult. Yeah, there's going to be some, moments when you couldn't really make it for that week, but as long as you're back on track, let us know, and you're letting everyone else know that you're human. You're just human, and other people are human, and not everyone's perfect, and everybody's going to go through that.
Very true.
So,
And it is like Ballstein says in Zoolander. What do we do when we fall off the horse? And then Zoolander looks at him with confused eyes, and he has to let him know, we get back on! Because that is what we do when we fall off of a horse. It's probably not a great analogy in 2015 because we don't ride a lot of horses. But you can, I got a good one. When you screw up in your level, you can always be an asshole and hit the reset button.
exactly.
Right?
Great analogy.
Because there's
Even if
nothing
you
worse.
know you're about to die,
Yep.
before you die, you can hit pause.
And hit the reset button and
Hit
start
the
over
reset
from
button.
the beginning. Because you know Mario is about to fall into the lake, and you say, "Ah, shit, reset." Because that is the world we live in. And there was nothing
Yes.
worse as a child than playing a video game with somebody who would hit the reset button incessantly because they could not stand the thought of actually dying and sucking at the video game they were trying to play. And I couldn't think of a better example because I don't play video games, and so the Mario Brothers game is kind of like the only game I ever really played because I was too poor growing up. My parents wouldn't get me a video game system, so my neighbor had one, and that's what he would do. He would start the level, and then he was about to die, and then he'd just hit the reset button. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, oh, I want to get it. I had to do it again. It's like, whatever, man. Just take your death and carry on. So,
Die like a man,
right, die like a man.
not a plumber.
So, Italian plumber. An Italian twin plumber with a skinny twin brother named Luigi, who was green, which I never understood. So that didn't take as long as I was hoping it would take. So we've got 20 minutes left in the program. So
I'm eating strawberries.
was that strawberries? It looked like you were eating grapes.
I was eating cherries before, but I ate
Oh,
them
those
all.
were cherries.
When
How did you eat the
when I run
cherries
out of
with-
strawberries, then I'll get the grapes.
Ah. How did you eat cherries without having to spit out the pits?
I have a whole bowl of pits right in front of me.
Oh, well, you do it very gracefully then, because when I spit out cherry pits, it's very unattractive. So, I was thinking.
Uh-oh.
I know. And what I was thinking was we've been doing this show now for a while. Quite a while, believe it or not. We've been doing the show. Technically, the Sober Happy Hour has been around since November of 2014. Whoa, holy shit. That sounded like we were sliding down an avalanche in Nepal.
Sorry, I forgot to put it on mute while I was moving slightly.
Sorry, too soon? Was it too soon, Robinson? Might have been too soon.
Nepal.
Yeah. We'll
Ouch.
file you under last to get the joke. So, now he's laughing. We've been doing the show for the better part of like 6 or 7 months now, which is crazy. That's a long time. And we've gotten to a point where I think we've minimized the technical difficulties, knock on wood. But what I think would be a lot of fun is not only to try and get some guests on the show, which we're working on, but to potentially start to break it down into 2 topics, one for the first hour, one for the second hour. And I'm struggling now with topics given that we've been doing the show for half a year, and a lot of the kind of the big topics we've already covered. So
That
when it
doesn't mean we
comes,
can't cover them again.
oh, of course not. I agree with you. But what would you guys say to the idea of 2 topics and splitting them up an hour apiece?
I think it's a good idea, but I think that one of the topics should probably be something along the lines of the current events, like what's
Current
happening
events.
in the world today, and how does it relate to sobriety?
That's
or
a really cool
whatever.
idea.
That way, that subject is always changing.
Yeah, I like that. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have an example?
There's always somebody in the news
Yes.
who's got kicked off of some sports teams because he was caught doing steroids,
Okay.
or some musician was arrested for drug abuse in the park, or there's always something. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Well, and what I find interesting is legislatures. So the like legislators,
Yes.
politicians. It was a couple years ago now, but there was a senator or a representative, somebody in Congress, who was like driving in D.C. in the middle of the night,
Patrick Kennedy.
completely out of his mind, and blamed it on Ambien, right? Like, oh, I took Ambien, now I'm driving around the streets of D.C., in a seedy part of town, like a place that white people only go when they're trying to score drugs.
Or
But
sex.
I'm on Ambien.
Yes, that was Patrick Kennedy.
All right, so this was a few years ago, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
About that.
And then he's trying to say that he was on his way to cast a vote in Congress, right? So I think those types of topics would be great conversations to have on this show, because it proves that not only no one is immune from drug and alcohol problems, but it also proves that even the rich and powerful, they sink down to some pretty low levels because of drugs and alcohol. I think of what was the dude's name? Basketball player. I was gonna say black guy, but that was pretty obvious. Married to Khloe Kardashian. Played for the Lakers.
Wayne.
I'm talking to the wrong 2 men in this room right now. God damn it! What is his name? He's got kind of a weird name, doesn't he? Chaz, look it up real quick.
I don't
Google.
I don't follow sports, and I don't know much about the Kardashian thing.
Yeah, damn it. Neither do I. Which is probably why.
She looks good as a woman.
What was his name? Chloe. How do you spell Chloe? CKLCHL.
I think she spells it with a K.
She spells it simply, yeah, the K.
Okay, Khloe Kardashian and
Husband.
Is it her husband? Lamar Odom. Ah, there we go. Lamar Odom, and that's pretty.
Lamar Odom, of course. I never heard
right,
of him.
because he's a drug addict, and his last name is Odom, which is funny to me because he owed him money. Because you always owe him money when you're using crack.
Okay.
So That's how I'll never forget it now. I will never forget his name ever again because I just made an association, right?
Yes.
So he owed him money for crack. So here's a dude who was an NBA superstar, right? Lamar Odom was like a championship winning forward for the Lakers and gets involved with this crazy chick, the Kardashian, and now he's like full blown crack addict. That's sad. I don't care who you are. That's sad. I don't care if you're a famous basketball player or not, but he had everything going for him, and crack grabbed him by the nutsack and won't let him go. And now the paparazzi is chasing him around trying to get pictures of him scoring drugs, and his marriage is ending and his career. He literally walked away from an NBA career, and my guess is now, in hindsight, I look at it as it probably wasn't because he had some famous skank for a wife, but because he was on crack, you know, and he would rather do drugs with the millions that he earned than have to get up in the morning and work out and be a basketball player. So that's pretty crazy. I can't remember any other basketball players becoming drug addicts, midway through their careers in the NBA. Like that's a first that I've seen. There were a couple of NBA players who, after they retired, got into drugs, but in the middle of a career, a totally decent career in basketball, to just walk away and turn to a life of drug addiction is definitely strange. So I have no problem uh, looking into it a little bit, and then we can discuss it in hour 2 next week, and try to figure out what might have happened in that situation, because it still strikes me as odd. Like that is a weird story to me, because usually athletes, especially like upper echelon athletes, they tend to try to take care of themselves from a health perspective, right? They're big into health and fitness, and they usually eat pretty well and they exercise all the time and they try to stay in great shape because that's their job. To then turn to something as hardcore as crack cocaine, as opposed to having a leg surgery and then getting hooked on pain pills or something like that. That just seems very strange to me, and I'd love to know more of the details that may or may not be available. So stuff like that, the stuff that people want to hear about, right? The stuff that'll get people interested in listening and say like, hey, you should listen to that Sober Happy Hour show because they did a whole half-hour long conversation about this or that person. And it was interesting to hear their perspective from a drug addict and recovery perspective. Like if I had an opportunity to take Lamar Odom to a 12-step meeting, I would take him. I would ask him if he could, maybe I could hitch a ride in his Bentley, but I would still go with him, no problem. If you're listening, Lamar Odom, I will gladly go with you to a 12-step meeting. Time and place, man. Time and a place. That's it. That's all I'm saying. So we're winding it down, gentlemen. It has been an interesting evening. The time went by really fast for me. I don't know about you guys, but I can't believe it's already the end of the show. And I'm not a big fan of taking a week off because I missed you. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not ashamed to say that I missed you guys, and I don't know that anybody missed us, but I hope they did desperately. And had it not been for taking a week off, I maybe wouldn't have thought to reach out to our listeners to get our list of what are we going to call them? What can we call the people that write in?
Celebrities.
There are celebrities.
Yes, they are our celebrities.
I was gonna call them our sober happy heads, but celebrities is fine.
Sober
Um,
celebrities.
sober. What? Don't look at me like that, Chaz. What's wrong with sober happy head? You know, like deadhead, like a Dave head, bedhead. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind a little sober happy head once in a while.
Amen. Sloppy sober happy head. That's actually that's a new Hustler video.
I actually had a request from someone to teach them how to. No, that's a whole other show.
That's a different show. That's a different. That was
Yeah,
a different
that was
show
the show
that
they
you
got
were
rid
on
of.
before.
Opening
Yep,
seminar.
that's right. So, I am curious what will transpire. I don't even know that this is something we're allowed to talk about on the air, but there is going to be a meeting of the minds at Radio Valencia,
Yes, that's what I've heard.
and it could mean changes for the radio station.
Usually for
It
the
could
good, yeah.
it could mean nothing changes. I don't know, but if they usually mean changes for the better, that would be fantastic. But there's always a slight possibility that it could mean just change in general. So we will keep everybody up to date on what those changes may or may not be when it comes to our radio show. Um, let's say worst case scenario, Radio Valencia decides that they're going to change things around and the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast no longer has a home on Radio Valencia. Well, I would say two things. First and foremost, I would say, fuck you, Radio Valencia. That'd be the first thing I would say. But the second thing I would say is, we're not going anywhere. Come hell or high water, the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast continues. And whether that means in podcast form or live on YouTube or I don't know, potentially being picked up nationally by a syndicated broadcast outlet such as Clear Channel, I couldn't tell you, but I do know that there is a big meeting of the minds happening at the station, and we will, if anything were to change on our end of the spectrum, we will let you, the listening audience, know first if anything changes. Hopefully, nothing changes, and I could be having this going off on this little diatribe for no reason at all, but you never know. What normally happens in those meetings, Robinson?
I've been to a couple of them, and they're usually pretty easygoing. Things have been changing, and I haven't been to a meeting in over a year, so I'm not exactly sure. I know that there's kind of like a core group of people that are mostly like super involved in everything, and they claim to not be the management or the heads of any operations, but they're kind of viewed that way because they're kind of they're the ones driving the bus basically. Everyone else is just a passenger, even though everyone has equal say on where the bus is going. There still has to be someone holding that steering wheel, so they're kind of like the steering wheel holders, I guess.
And somebody has to go inside and pay for the gas, right?
Right, exactly.
Somebody else has to pump the gas.
There's a person who's basically, the leaseholder instead of the Radio Valencia having its own business name that the lease is under. It's, John Fast is the guy, and then, just I guess other people do different things. There's one guy who's kind of like the brain behind making sure that the computer is always on and working, and the IT guy. So everyone's got their parts for making the machine run, for the maintenance of the machine.
And I would imagine that at times the bus may feel like it's being driven by one person holding the wheel and another person hitting the gas pedal and another person hitting the brake pedal, and it can get a little bit squirrely at times. But how long has Radio Valencia been around broadcasting live out of the Mission District?
quite a while. It wasn't called Radio Valencia until just a few years ago when they broke away from.
Sorry.
Was that you?
It was, but
Okay,
it was
so
unintentional.
um, yeah, it was originally in a different location, and they were going to move into a cafe on Valencia
Oh,
in San Francisco,
and
and
now it all
that
makes sense.
cafe was owned and operated by a. Is our show over?
It's getting there. So the
Playing
bumper
our
music
closing
starts.
music.
It's the bumper music, yeah.
Okay, anyway, so that's why they chose the name Radio Valencia. I guess I don't know all the details of the story, so I don't want to go into it.
No, that's
But
all right. We don't have the time anyway.
they decided they were going to get their own space instead of going with that one, but they had already chosen the name, and so even
I
though
like the name.
technically it should be called Radio Mission or Mission Radio,
Right.
it's Radio Valencia, and it works, and we're all happy with it. Because
Well, we are happy to be a part of it, and
Yeah.
from my heart to yours, this has been the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. Chaz, say goodbye,
Goodbye, Chaz.
and Robinson, say fare thee well.
say what?
Whatever you want to say. The show's over. It's time to go.
No, it's not. We have 36. Oh, it's over. Okay, never mind.
Well, this is the Sober Happy Hour radio
Okay.
broadcast. You can hit us up, soberhappyhour@gmail.com, facebook.com/soberhappyhour, or on Twitter @soberhappyhour. We will be back next week, Saturday night at midnight, Sunday morning until 2 a.m. And just like always, if you or yours are considering getting sober, I highly recommend it. So do these guys.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. Radio
at the end-
Rampage is up next, and also thank you, Karen, for the intro. And all right, see you guys next week.
See you next week. Good night.
Hey, what's up? I just finished my radio broadcast. I'm not. No, well, no, I'm not doing it from the city anymore. We're broadcasting from Arizona now.